I met you guys at the diabetes clinic at Evelina Children's Hospital. I think maybe only a couple of months after Indy had been, maybe a couple of months after Indy had been diagnosed.
I remember thinking how relaxed you were. I couldn't believe it.
Well, he was a lot older than George was when he was diagnosed, and we didn't have any of that kind of horrible, life-threatening stuff. We caught it very luckily early. So.
How did you do that?
I used to work with somebody that had type 1, so I was nosy and asked him one day what he was doing with his finger, and I think I sort of knew. He was doing a finger stick test, and he told me he'd been diagnosed quite late in life, sort of in his early 20s.
Yeah.
And he told me about drinking loads and having to go to the toilet, so I just kind of noticed that happening, and I was just lucky and took him to the doctor, and the doctor thought he was completely fine. Didn't really think there was a problem, but humoured me and said, well, if you think there's something wrong, go away and take a urine test with pot with you. And he wasn't potty trained, so we kind of just left it for a couple of days over the weekend. And the doctor had said to me, is he losing weight as well?
Yeah.
And I said, I don't think so, but that weekend was really hot and he was running around kind of half naked, and I looked at him and I thought maybe he has lost a tiny bit of weight. I'd better do that test on Monday. And we did the urine test, dropped it at the doctor's on the way to taking the other one to school, and then got a call at lunchtime saying, I'm really sorry, but it looks, there's nothing else this could be, but there's an extremely high amount of sugar in your son's urine.
So what was the process from then? What happened?
Well, the doctor, she's really nice on the phone about it and sort of calmed me down a bit. I think I was in a state of shock. And she said, you need to go to A&E.
Yeah.
And I had pasta cooking on the stove. And he was really hungry, and so I said, okay, I just sort of asked, do I have to take him right now, or can I feed him lunch first? And she said, well, how does he seem? I was like, he seems okay.
Yeah.
She said, well, that's fine, it should be okay, give him some food and then take him. It's not, an emergency. If he seems well, go after lunch.
Wow.
And so he had lunch and I had to pretend to sort of be fine. Meanwhile, I was packing a bag, calling my mom, calling my husband.
So were you were convinced then on the word of the doctor?
Pretty much. She was quite, I think it was helpful actually to be told pretty bluntly at that point, right from the get-go, although it was a big shock. She said there wasn't really anything else it could be. And I think I asked her, could it be anything worse? Could it be anything more sinister, more,
Yeah.
And she said, no, this is the only reason you ever have sugar in your urine is diabetes. So.
Okay, so they've told you your son's got diabetes.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea what that means?
A little bit, because of the guy that I used to work with.
Yeah.
So a little bit, but I remember walking to the hospital with my mum. It was a boiling hot day, and I remember thinking, Indy had a Happy Meal a couple of weeks before and had this toy that he loved playing with, and it was one of the things I packed in the bag to take with us. And I remember when we got into the A&E, I remember kind of like crying a bit, or sort of trying not to, thinking, as he played with this toy, thinking he'll never have a Happy Meal again. That's his childhood out the window. I remember thinking that. Actually, that's not true at all. He does still have Happy Meals very happily.
Yeah.
And it's fine.
Good. What is type 1 diabetes as opposed to type 2?
As I understand it, it's an autoimmune disease, and your pancreas, the beta cells in your pancreas that produce insulin, just stop functioning.
Yeah.
Or gradually stop functioning, but in a sort of no going back kind of way. Compared to type 2, where you get resistant to insulin and you're not as sensitive to it anymore, and then eventually the same thing ends up happening as type 1 possibly, but with type 1 it's definitive.
Yes.
That's it.
Okay.
You're done.
What would happen to him? So talk us through day to day. You start to learn about how to treat Indy. Did you start by using injections?
Yeah, we were on injections for 4 months in Indy.
How did that go?
Initially horrific, to be honest, in the hospital. We had to hold him down for every single injection. I remember doing the first one, and
because he hated them.
Hated them.
Right.
Yeah, initially, he didn't understand what was going on. He was 2.5.
Yeah.
And I mean, the needles are tiny now compared to what they used to be, but still, it's not a nice thing to have to do. And I remember doing the first one, and he's a really strong kid and quite definite.
Yeah.
Quite stubborn. And I remember holding him down, and then, but obviously not having done it properly, and he moved suddenly, and I scratched him. The needle scratched.
Yeah.
And I just felt, absolutely awful. I was in bits about it. But to be honest, by the end of the 4 months, we then went on to an insulin pump. By the time we'd been on them for 4 months, he'd become amazing about the injections and it's funny to say, but if he was hungry, he would ask for food, and then he would come and offer me his bottom. He would sort of stick it towards me and go, "Mummy, I need my injection." So, he did get used to them. It's amazing what you can get used to, but he's now not had an injection for 9 months, and I do worry if the pump failed or something, how he would be about having them again, because he got used to them, and I don't know how he would be about it now.
So tell us a bit about day to day. What does the pump do for Indy? What does that mean? What would happen to Indy if he didn't have insulin? Why does he need a pump?
Needs a pump because his body can't produce any insulin on its own anymore, and you need insulin all the time to keep your blood sugar under control. So the pump is amazing. It's a small device about the size of a kind of mobile phone or something, and it's got a cartridge of insulin in it, and it drips insulin into him throughout the day. The kind of background level of insulin is called basal, and we program the pump to drip in varying amounts throughout the day and night, and then every time he eats, we tell it how many carbs he's eating, how many grams of carbohydrate, and then it gives him an extra boost of it, which is called bolus of insulin.
Great. And once you've set that pump, is that it? Or
once you've done what? Once you've set it?
Yeah.
No. No, we are constantly, we've overnight, as you did, we had to become experts basically in diabetes and understanding why his levels do certain things and when and what you need to adjust. And I would say...
What are the reasons for changing things then?
So if he has a growth spurt, he's just finished one actually, and when little kids first fall asleep, they grow, but when they're really growing, their blood sugar is going crazily high, and you have to put on a lot of extra insulin. Well, that's what we found, and he can be on sort of 4 times what he may have been on the day before if he's begun a growth spurt, and there's no predicting when that's going to happen. You just notice he's going high and you think, okay, I need to jack it up, and then there's no predicting when it's going to end, so you have to be really careful. Thank God he has a continuous glucose monitor, so we can see if he's suddenly starting to fall quickly, and then turn it off if it turns out his growth spurt's ended. But it's a constant balancing act, basically.
Yes, that was us last night. Yeah, it was the end of a growth spurt last night, so not much sleep.
No, it's been like that for a few days.
So, and why else might you need to tweak it? So a growth spurt, and obviously, I mean, he's 3.5.
Yeah.
So he's growing all the time.
All the time. I would say about a week on, a week off, or a couple of weeks off, another week on. It's
Weather?
Weather, it goes low when it's hot quite a lot of the time.
Okay.
Yeah, it seems to go lower. Running around, lots of exercise.
Yeah.
He just was ill a week or so ago and stopped kind of eating, which was fine, but it meant his insulin needs halved overnight. So from one day to the next, he was probably on half what he'd been on the previous day. And then what happened was, when he started eating normally again, his sensitivity to insulin had doubled, and so he was still only on half, with eating all the food that he was, constantly crashing unless we adjusted it. So, constantly changing things.
So, what's the least number of times you'd have to check on Indy in a day?
The least number of times?
Yeah.
Depends what you mean by check, because...
Well, including his food, I guess, and just...
You mean testing?
Yeah, testing and
checking his
and even
monitor?
just checking his monitors, because you've got a continuous blood glucose monitor is going to give you that graph, as you say, that's dipping, but you can't trust that 100% because sometimes that'll fail, right?
Yep.
So,
okay, so I would say when he's with me, it's rare for half an hour to go by without me thinking, I wonder what his BG is doing. So I would say I check the monitor of his glucose monitor about at least every half an hour probably, and if it looks like it's doing something a bit weird, or the trend arrows are saying he's heading for a low or something, then we have to test. And as you say, the technology does fail quite a lot, so if he just looks a bit odd or seems to be behaving funnily, or comes and tells me he feels low, which is not all the time, but some of the time now, then we have to test him. I'd say we still do a massive number of finger prick tests a day. I'm kind of frightened to admit how many we do, to be honest, to anybody.
No,
I mean, I would say it's not unusual for us to do 20 a day.
Yeah, when George was first diagnosed, we used to keep a book, and we tested him almost 40 times one day. But this is it.
Fingers.
How do you know when he's low or high? What are the sort of what happens to him when he's low or high? I mean, I've talked to a little bit about that, but every child's unique.
When he's high, I'd say the only thing I really notice when he's high, he does get a bit grumpy and crazy thirsty, really thirsty. They're about the only two sort of main things when he's high, and also because of the monitor, we get the alarms telling us he's going out. Low, he can go a bit hyper, bizarrely seeming, like a bit manic.
Yeah, that's
and you
familiar.
think like almost or a bit drunk kind of seeming, a bit like crazy, and starts walking on the tops of furniture and stuff, and you're thinking something's he's lost sense of I don't know. But he's what else? He has dark circles under his eyes, I would say, and his pupils really dilate sometimes as well. He goes pale when he's low.
Great. Tell us.
God, sorry about that.
No, that's fine. Is Indy aware that he's different from? Oh, you've got a bigger brother. How old's his big brother?
6.
What's he called?
Luca.
Is he aware that he's different from Luca, and that Luca doesn't have a?
Yeah.
He's conscious of all that.
Yeah, definitely is aware he has diabetes. He often announces it to people when he first meets them.
Great.
And picks his t-shirt up to show them his pump. So his nursery have been phenomenal at making him feel good about it and confident about it. They made a book with him at nursery about his diabetes, and all the kids helped, and they all role play testing each other and stuff. It's amazing. So they've been so good from that sort of psychological perspective.
Wonderful.
He has, though, from time to time recently said, I hate diabetes, and it's nearly always when we're trying to change his pump cannula, which is a thing we fire into him to put the little tube in that delivers the insulin, and we have to pin him down every time we do that. Unfortunately, it's not because it hurts that much, because we've done it on ourselves quite a number of times, but I think it's that he hates the click, that plastic click sound. We've tried getting him to do it himself a few times before putting it in, and it doesn't seem to make any difference.
It's an ugly bit of kit, you're right.
It's quite grim, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, we have had I hate diabetes, I hate you, I hate diabetes, and we've got a kind of thing, what does diabetes do for you? It makes you stronger, doesn't it? And he's like, yeah, it makes me stronger. So we kind of always try and counteract it like that, but it's...
And Indy's good friend with George as well, very good friends, although George will often tell me that Indy's his best friend in the whole world, which is lovely.
Indy says the same.
And they compare stickers and...
They do. I think it's amazing that they know each other. They're basically the same age, with the same condition, and pretty much similar pieces of kit, with their pumps and their sensors and their
personality.
They're both obsessed with superheroes. It's amazing. I hope it will be a long and happy friendship.
Yeah,